I think we're all still looking for answers on this one. Joe Burrow goes down once again. You know, the toe surgery's happening. Turf toe, grade 3, not good. 3 months is the minimum recovery time. I think we all just now, after the Bengals start 2-0, you kind of have a chance to look back and say, I mean, do we have to turn our heads and, you know, start to just say, this is Joe Burrow. This is Joe Burrow. He takes the hits. It's partly his fault, and he can't stay healthy. I mean, we've seen the injuries in the past. We've seen him in a training camp. Was the calf the 1 year scram? We've seen it a couple times now where, you know, I've seen something about, you know, most of the time it's where it's the pockets collapsing. Well, yeah, it's happened. A lot of the bad ones. But we've also seen Joe Burrow scramble. It was the calf injury. We've seen him come down on the wrist the one time where he is a little injury prone. That being said, though, I don't care. I mean, I do in that regard, but I'm not going to hold Joe Burrow accountable and be like, you know, this is his fault every single season, because this is a Cincinnati Bengals pass blocking unit since Joe Burrow's been here in 6 years has not finished inside the top 25. There's only 32 teams in the league, by the way. So it's not good. It's not good. They have not finished in the top 25 in pass block win rate once. They haven't finished in the top half of the league in run block win rate runs. They are losing in all phases in the trenches in the Zach Taylor era. And I come today to say once again, I could not be more convinced at this point in juncture. I've been hot, I've been cold, I've been wanting to be supportive. I want to see the guys succeed. I could not be more convinced at this point in juncture. It is a Zach Taylor problem. It is Zach Taylor's job at the end of the day to protect his quarterback. I get it. Joe Burrow, you know, I hear a lot of, and this is what's been crazy. I've been hearing a lot of talk about, well, it's Joe Burrow's offense. It's what Joe Burrow wants. I know he said some things on Netflix. One thing we all know as fans of this football team or fans of Joe Burrow is this man's taking accountability every single time. If the Bengals were to lose 75-76, Joe Burrow would go out there and say, I could have did better. He's always taking accountability. That's what leaders do. Leaders lead. He's not looking to pin the blame on Zach. He's not the kind of guy that goes out and says, yeah, well, we ran. I did what the coach said, you know? No. So, of course, you're going to hear that sort of mindset. Of course, he does have some say in the plays. He has some say in the game. He has some say in what they draw up. But at the same time, how many times did they call a timeout these first 2 games? Because Zach Taylor couldn't get the plays in? That tells you everything you need to know about who's in control of this offense. When your head coach does not have the ability to take a step back and hand the play calling off to not Joe Burrow, but not even his offensive coordinator, that he is so this high up on himself as an offensive coordinator, and maybe he's an excellent offensive coordinator or play caller, maybe. Maybe he thinks he's doing the best he can, and hey, props to him, but at the end of the day, same season, same story, different season. Slow start, offense, slow start. After a good drive, slow start. Clear miscommunication, clear frustration by Joe Burrow with him not getting a play in. And the thing is, with a guy like Joe Burrow, I'm sure he does have the freedom to audible out of a play, to check out of a play. But if it takes Zach Taylor until his 18 seconds on a play clock to get the play in, there's not a lot of time to be audible. And Burrow has time to make a couple quick calls and protection. Maybe a quick audible out wide, but I mean, again, you only have so much time to draw things up when you're getting to the line of scrimmage with 9 seconds left. The fact that Joe Burrow gets to the line of scrimmage with 9 seconds left changes 17 different things in the first place is wildly impressive. He should be getting to the offensive line. They should be ready to snap that football with 20 seconds on the play clock every single time with that man under center. Because when that man's got time to look at that defense, to call the proper audibles, to set things up the way they should be, it's glorious. And more importantly, you know, I didn't have to dig deep. First play of the game against the Jaguars. First pass play, I should say. Joe Burrow gets pressure in his face, not even 2 seconds into right at 2 seconds. And again, league average, or if you just want to look at the stars in the league, you know, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they're getting close to 3 seconds of football before they're getting pressured. Joe Burrow, 2 seconds getting pressured. Why does that matter? Because you look at the play that was being drawn up at the time. He's seen T. Higgins. He had T. Higgins. He had him beat. Or Higgins had his man beat. And honestly, if he has half a second longer, you kind of see Joe Burrow get ready to, you know, I don't know if we could show, probably can't show the full clip, maybe a picture. But, you know, you can see him get ready to cock and throw that football. after he already evaded the first guy coming in his face. And then another guy came up in his face, and that's when the ball got deflected, and he didn't really have a choice there. But T. Higgins had his guy beat. And that's 75 yards through the house, if that pass is completed. In 20 offensive lines, that pass is completed. The Bengals are up 7-0. Well, 7-7. The confidence is going. With the Bengals offensive line, Joe Burrow's taking hits. Unneeded hits. Those are the ones where, yes, as a coach, you are responsible. Because here's the thing about that play, and this is why we've been hearing a lot about, well, why can't they do what Jake Browning does with the Bengals with Joe Burrow? Because in that particular situation, that's a 75-yard house call. If you look down at the bottom of the screen, Chase Brown is beyond. But he doesn't have 10 player within 9-10 yards of him. But Joe sees his man's. I mean, what do you want? Do you want to check down Merchant, or do you want the guy that hits that 75-yard kill shot? Because what an elite quarterback is going to do is if you give him time to throw the football, he's going to hit that 75-yard kill shot. Could have checked it down. Jake Browning would have checked it down and taken that, 10-15-yard gain. And it would have been a good play. Would have been a great play. But that's the difference in a game manager and an elite quarterback. You got to give your elite quarterbacks enough time to make a play. Now, if it becomes every single play where Joe Burrow is standing back there for 3 seconds, then he's trying to scramble around a little bit, and then he's taking a hit, yeah, we can talk about it being a Joe Burrow problem. But the problem is, though, you watch these plays, you got the left tackle in that particular play. Left tackle is beat. Okay, he's trying to step up in the pocket. Now the interior is collapsing. Complete disaster. It's not a, I hear a lot of talk about, well, Lamar and Josh create plays with the legs and all this. So it's like, yeah, but they do that because even if there is a weakness on their line, maybe it's just left tackle. Maybe it's just right tackle. Maybe it's just left guard. A quarterback can make a play with his legs, abating one guy. Burrow's pocket's collapsing around him. There's little he can do, and that's where the injuries come, because it's like when it's collapsing everywhere and you're just trying to shuffle around just a little bit, one little turn here, one little turn there, somebody falls on your legs, and now you got a problem. And as a coach, you got to find a way to, at some point in time, protect the quarterback. You got 6 seasons to figure it out. When Joe Burrow can stand back there as long as Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, heck, even Patrick Mahomes' offensive line has gotten worse, still has more time to throw the football than Joe Burrow. When he has that kind of time to throw the football and then we're having injury problems, we can talk about it. Fact of the matter is, you got to put the guy in a position to succeed. Fact of the matter is, if that's a problem, if your offensive line is struggling, why are you not drawing up more checkdowns, more screen passes? Again, we hear a lot of, it's something about this narrative kind of irks me. You probably figure that out by the end of this video. This narrative that it's Joe Burrow's offense and his choice and his play goes. There was a point in time where this offensive line was terrible, and people were talking about Joe Burrow being a check down king. Not afraid to do the screen passes, the checkdowns, and then they kind of got away from that. And until their offensive line proves they can protect, and as long as, not only that, if the plays are effective, do we truly think Joe Burrow is going to that locker room and saying, hey, Zach, I know that dump off just got 15 yards, but we can't keep doing that. I know that screen pass just got 12 yards, but we can't keep doing that. Do we really think that's what's happening? No. Come on. That's where the issues are. To me, it's a culture problem. And if it's not, if you have further questions, I did the diligence of diving into things for the people. We talk about this offensive line. We talk about, is it Joe Burrow? Is it a Zach Taylor problem? 2018 was Marvin Lewis's final season with the Bengals. Remember the guy? 16 years here, couldn't get rid of him quick enough. Struggling franchise, they couldn't go anywhere with him. Joe Mixon, 4.9 yards per carry, sophomore year, was set to just blow up. Remember that? Every single year under Zach Taylor, we lived on the hopes and dreams that Joe Mixon would be back to his sophomore self. Andy Dalton. Oh, by the way, it never happened. 4.1 yards of carries was the most he ever did under Zach Taylor. Andy Dalton. Yeah, we know Andy Dalton couldn't play in a primetime game. Okay, but for the most part, Andy Dalton, besides when he got a little frustrated Again, the big moments he had a hard time with. But for the most part, there was a point in time there was a cardiac cast. Andy Dalton was driving his football team up and down the field. There was a point in time when Andy Dalton got that thumb injury where it felt like they could make a serious playoff run. Average quarterback, some years he could be above average. Zach Taylor would come in. Andy Dalton would finish the season with his worst QBR of his career. Andy Dalton's interceptions would go up. His touchdowns would go down. It was one of, if not the worst season Andy Dalton has had in a Cincinnati Bengals uniform. And I hear a lot about the narrative Zach Taylor inherited a bad situation. No. Well, yeah, it wasn't the best. But if we remember, Zach Taylor was kicking out as many Marv guys as he possibly could, as quick as he could. Guys were requesting trades. They didn't want to be here. You wanted a fresh start. Zach Taylor created this culture. But if we do need to dive into it a little bit. You want to hear what's crazy? Andy Dalton would finish his final year under Marvin Lewis with 21 sacks. Came out to be about 30 sacks on his season full game. He didn't play the full season. He was on average for 30 sacks. Now, there was some seasons he passed the ball more than others. There was some season he came up to that 560, that 580 number, which was where he was at with Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor has been I want to throw the rock, I want to sling it around since day one. When Andy Dalton came in, that is what he has been. But that was the last season under Marvin Lewis was Andy Dalton was 21 sacks. You know how many sacks he had in his first season with Zach Taylor? 37. 13 games played. He was on pace to be sacked the most he had been sacked in his entire career. His completion percentage was the worst it's been since his rookie season. All of that. And let's still go take a look at the offensive line. The offensive line that has struggled in 6 years with Zach Taylor. The offensive line that has brought in Collins, OBJ, Karras, Kappa. The names are endless. The amount of people, the amount of money they've tried to spend on this offensive line. And nothing is stuck. We just said it. Hey, bringing in names, paying guys. They should have thrown $60 million at Thuney in the offseason. Absolutely. But at the same time, everybody they brought in just does not seem to stick or does not gel. At some point in time, you have to say, is it a coaching problem? They even brought in Pollock, who was supposed to, remember when he came back, that was supposed to be the savior? Because when he was here with Marv, it worked. And then he worked okay. And then he comes back and it never worked. You bring in these other coordinators. You start to wonder the same thing. I'm like, oh, the Bengals are the lowest blitz rate in the league right now. And now I'm starting to question, because that wasn't Al Golden in college. I'm starting to question, is Zach Taylor coming down? Is this the Zach Taylor way? He doesn't want to blitz. Because we know Lou didn't do it either. Is it a coincidence, or are we really just diving into this rabbit hole? But anyway, I want to go back to 2018. This was important. The Bengals offensive line in 2018, Marvin Lewis's final season, we said 21 sacks. Under 2 sacks per game was the average. And the next season was 2.5 sacks per game he was averaging with Zach Taylor. So under that particular situation, the Bengals starting offensive line was, I should have wrote this down. Because nobody's going to remember half these people. Cordy Glenn, Clint Bowling, which solid piece for the Bengals for a while there. Billy Price, Alex Redmond, and Bobby Hart. And you know what's funny about that offensive line? Do you remember the 2018 Bengals? I remember pretty specifically talking about Bobby Hart being a black hole, the worst player on that offensive line. And it was an absolute problem with him on it. It was just a sack waiting to happen. He just got walked around every time. And the funny thing about that is Bobby Hart, of those 5 guys, would go on to be the only one, or I shouldn't say the only one, but one of 2 to actually start football games for full seasons after that season. He would go on to play 2 more seasons as a starter. The rest of that offensive line was so bad that none of them could say they did that. Marvin Lewis coached that offensive line to 21 sacks. Zach Taylor would inherit an equally bad offensive line, and Andy Dalton would be sacked 37 times. That awful offensive line in 2018 would have Joe Mixon springboarded to 4.9 yards per carry. I get it. I did not like Marvin Lewis as an offensive coach. He was too passive. He was not aggressive. He was conservative. But at the same time, we did see Andy Dalton sling the rock quite a bit in his career. And the numbers, I like looking at the completions per sack. it's not adding up. There's not an excuse to why this offensive line has been horrible literally every year under Zach Taylor. Because when you look back at that offensive line, there's not a person on this planet that'll say that 2018 Bengals offensive line was better than anything that has lined up for the Bengals over the past 2 seasons, maybe the last 3. But yet, Joe Burrow was getting obliterated and was on pace for yet a second consecutive season of 45 plus sacks with these players on the offensive line. At some point in time, it becomes a point of emphasis and a point of clarity. When Marvin Lewis was here, the trenches were average to above average. Did they have their down years? Absolutely. But did they have a identity to win in the trenches, which is what you got to do in the AFC North? Absolutely. Have they had that identity since Zach Taylor's been here? It has been 6 seasons. No. They have never attempted to run the football. Even in Zach's first season. Remember, Dalton was slinging that ball 40, 50 freaking times those first couple games of the season. That has been the Zach Taylor culture. That has been the Zach Taylor way. I know it's a small sample size, but sometimes you have to take off the goggles and say, how much is Joe Burrow doing to make Zach Taylor look good? And at this point in juncture, when you see the quarterback go down for a 3rd time with a possibly season-ending injury, for the 3rd time in 6 seasons, the goggles come off and you start to look and see things for how they are and the way it looks. The slow start's still here. The offensive line problems are still here. The defensive line still can't get pressure minus Trey Hendrickson, a guy they signed. The best offensive lineman is a guy they signed. A couple guys they signed. They have not developed a presence in the defense in the trenches in 6 seasons. Under Zach Taylor. That's his culture. That is his identity. I hold out for Shamar Stewart. I hope it ends well for him. I hope this guy's an elite stud. But it has been the identity of Zach Taylor and company. He has rode the coattails of Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is going to win 9 games, 8 games a season, no matter who his coach is. And that's what we're getting right now. We're getting a 9-10 win team. And we're seeing this team kill him. To put it bluntly, they are ruining a quarterback. Time's ticking. It's time to open the eyeballs up if you're the front office, because somebody's got to take accountability. Joe Burrow's fixing to be 29. Joe Burrow is running out of years. You put Joe Burrow behind his offensive line for 2-3 more years where he continues to get hit like this, he will not be playing good football at 35. He's just going to be hurt all the time. I don't think he's an Andrew Luck, because I don't think he's a guy that's going to sit on that couch and say, I just got to get away from this game. I'm bored about my health. Now, this guy lives and dies football, which is, again, why you want to put him in the best situation possible. If it means restarting up top, you absolutely do it. He's had 6 years. If Zach Taylor can find a way to win 12 football games this season, maybe even 10, with Jake Browning, I mean, I can see where, we talk differently. If this team seems to all of a sudden have a good run game, a good offense line, maybe we talk differently. Otherwise, though, bye. My personal thoughts, though. Nonetheless, love y'all's thoughts. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.